Okay, so a bit ago I had started my review of Suris's Jorgensen critique, and I had left out all of the healthcare portions because it was a 15-minute video by Suris, and I was already an hour and a half. And I was like, this is already too long, and I would save those follow-up comments for later. Now is later, and I'm doing it with a little bit of a get ready with me because I'm getting ready to record the Cult of RONR. Putting on my makeup for that. Cheers. Okay, we're going to be coming up soon on the portion. I've been just listening to the Suris in the background. The Suris, oh, that's funny. The Suris video in the background to get to the points that I skipped. I didn't, bookmark it ahead of time. I figured I'd just listen while I was getting ready. And they are coming up. In my Get Ready With Me, I've done all the foundation stuff, and we'll be working on the eyeballs. All right, let's get going.
Should health insurers be allowed to deny people who have pre-existing conditions? And Joe says, yes. Okay, if you're going to believe in a policy...
Okay. Now, on the pre-existing condition item, Suris and I disagree completely when it comes to healthcare. But part of that is we're dealing with the system that we have now, and his solutions, or people who tend to think somewhat similarly, but maybe come from different presuppositions, their solutions just to keep piling on the problem that we have now, to keep trying to fix it, and it keeps compounding the actual problem. The problem is how expensive healthcare is to begin with. And why is it so expensive? It is excessive government regulation. In fact, there are just stupid laws that people don't even realize, like you can't buy healthcare across state lines. Why not? That seems completely arbitrary. And if you go back in the past on how healthcare was handled, not even that long ago, let me give you one example. There were fraternal societies such as the Moose Club, the Elks Club, probably even the Masons, that would hire an on-premises or in-lodge doctor that would take care of their membership, and it would be done at greatly reduced cost. That is not allowed anymore. There were other mutual aid societies that took care of these sorts of things, and they weren't religious in their orientation. Some were, some weren't. There was something for everyone. There is health share types of situations now. Most of those are in fact religiously based, but there's no reason that they have to be, that are almost regulated out of existence now, and they're completely prohibited in some states. Why? Why? We would not necessarily have to worry about pre-existing conditions if we didn't have to have exorbitant insurance, and we have to have exorbitant insurance because each solution we're adding on just jacks the cost up. There is no transparency. There's very little shopping that you can do. Rather than continuing to put these half-ass band-aids on the system, we need to take it down to the bottom and address it at its absolute root cost. But the fact is, it is also not equitable or fair or just to forcibly require everyone else to pay more because you are requiring insurance companies, which are in fact businesses, to assume more risk without the profit motive. There are insurance companies that would, for higher premiums or higher deductibles, cover pre-existing conditions if they were allowed to operate with competition. We have high-risk insurance companies for nearly everything else. That's why you have something like Lloyd's of London that you could, if you have a set of great tits, you could insure those if you would like. So there is the issue, not continually arguing why the system we have is broken and then continue to break it further as your solution. But let's let Suris go on. I may add a few more comments.
this, not insuring people who have pre-existing conditions and not doing anything about businesses that engage in that kind of practice, which basically means that people who are disabled are incredibly fucked. Like, if somebody loses their insurance at their job and has to get private insurance 20 years down the line after they've been having their issue dealt with.
Okay, private insurance, as I've said, has been completely crippled. Now everyone kind of has to have it through their job. It's a really interesting story how that came about. And your health care should not be tied to your employment in the way that it is today. I'm not going to say that should be prohibited, but it should not be the way it is now. I forgot what period of time it was. I believe it was the Second World War, maybe it was the First World War, but we're going back. It's definitely a war, and I'm pretty sure it was one of those two, where there were wage freezes. But then how did companies compete for the better employees? Well, that's when they started offering benefits, such as health insurance. And ever since then, that's been the way it is. And it doesn't have to be that way. We're so used to that that we can barely fathom something else. But that is not the way it has to be.
Through their insurance company that they've had at their job, and the private insurance is allowed to say, no, fuck you, then they're screwed for the rest of their life. And you, as an individual, you, as a person, would have been the one to enact a policy that let that happen. Through no fault of the disabled person, through no fault of their own, they are completely and totally screwed under this system. Something like this can only really be supported if you're willing to allow a government or single-payer option so that people can get the help they need if they're screwed in any other capacity. Do you support a single-payer healthcare system? She says, no, the government should not be involved in healthcare at all. Full stop. So, yeah, if somebody is disabled, they're completely and totally screwed. No government help for them.
Nope, that is not her position. I laid out, can't say it's her exact position, but I'm pretty sure it's close. You want to talk about disabled people being fucked? The single-payer system's the way to get there. You know, in the quest to make everyone equal, you are just seeking to make everyone equally miserable. When healthcare is rationed, the people that need it most are the ones that suffer most. Can anyone say death panels? Can anyone say that certain disabilities aren't, life worth living? Not to invoke de furor, but that is where that sorts of thing inevitably leads due to rationing. If you want to make all handicapped people equally miserable, okay, that's a good way to do it.
Should the government regulate the prices of life-saving drugs? Joe says no, the government should never regulate the prices of private businesses. Right. Because I can't think of any possible negative side effect that would come from allowing a business to do anything for profits, and allowing a business to, say, put the price of something like insulin so astronomically high that people with diabetes have to choose between insulin and food, or insulin and rent, or...
Okay, I'm glad he mentioned insulin, because that is what I was going to mention. Again, why are things like insulin so expensive? Bada-bada-bum, regulation. Why can you not buy insulin from out of the country? Why? Good question to ask, right? Do you know how cheap it is there? Do you not think prices would go down here if we were allowed to purchase outside? So rather than addressing the problem where it is, which is we don't really have a free market, you want to just add the government some more, as if that's going to solve the problem rather than making it exponentially worse. We need to completely reform the patent system. I would say eliminate it, but right now I'm being conservative. You need to completely reform that. And we need to completely reform our freedom. So we need to completely reform our drug system. And then there will be actual competition, and you won't need to regulate prices, which only drive them up, because regulation does not respond to market forces. I do agree that the prices are ridiculous right now. And there's also the whole transparency issue as well. that you don't really know how much things actually cost. And actual competition, as I've said, is stifled. Just amazes me that someone as smart as Suris just thinks piling on government is the answer to fucking everything. Used to be able to get drugs from Canadian pharmacies. You can't do that anymore. I may or may not, I'm not gonna really say, get some from India. Why should that be clandestine? I know so many medical tourists to Mexico for things like dental work. I know we're talking about prescriptions now, but you could just go on and on about the medical cartel in this country.
And the vehicle they use to get to work so they can actually provide a living wage to their families, but they're not going to get a living wage because people like Joe don't support a minimum wage, much less a minimum wage increase.
We'll deal with the minimum wage, as he only said that in passing at some other time. It only takes 1 second to make an assertion, and sometimes hours to refute it. Yeah, we're getting a decent smoky look, aren't we? I think so. Maybe not, but hey, a girl can dream. Okay, so that actually was a lot less that I didn't address. I guess I just got all freaked out because it was getting so long. I probably could have addressed this in the last one. But I think that does wrap it up. There are other Suris videos that I'm going to want to talk about as well as others, and I'm probably going to do a lot of it in this Get Ready With Me format. Please let me know what you liked, you didn't like, things to improve. I am still working on the new software, the Ecamm Live. It's a challenge, but it will get better. I might actually pay for the Ecamm Live Academy to get up to speed faster than my trial and error that I've been doing so far, which may or may not be working out okay.
Of the sale, and I had a coupon for an extra 20% off on top of everything.
You gotta take what you're given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians or choose to be an accountant because it's safe in a business, not because they wanna do it.